start recording. So we did a training at 2 o'clock, and we worked through some technical issues, and we appreciated everybody's patience. And we're gonna continue to appreciate everybody's willingness to jump on this call and to make sure that we can, give a training and do our best over virtually as we are doing it. So with that, if anybody has a question, you can actually go into your chat feature, which on your computer you'll see a little chat button at the bottom. You can click it and you can ask a question there. If you have any comments or questions, you can do it there. And as we're going throughout the presentation, we'll be able to answer them and take them as we come. You may have to wait a few minutes before we get the question answered, but we assure you that we'll get to it. If there are any technical issues with a video dropping or audio dropping, you can also put them in the chat window. Again, we're going to end the video after it's produced. For our 2 o'clock training, our 4 o'clock training, and the 6 o'clock training are all going to be available, and we're going to email that out. Jody's going to email that out to everybody to make sure that you can participate if you'd like to watch it again and refer back to it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joyce and Jody.
Are we ready?
All set.
Okay. I want to thank you all for taking your time to join us with this. This is our second one. We still don't have it perfected, so bear with us. For a lot of you, it may be familiar information. We'll have a thing or two new to share with you. Those of you that are new, thank you for joining us, and we hope that you can get everything that you need out of this video. Joyce?
Okay, we'll begin again. Again, thank you all for coming and participating in this as well. We are going to do our normal, which is we will go through the equipment delivered to your polling place by our delivery guys, and they are instructed on the delivery sheet to call you if you have requested that. They have that information. If they follow through with it, great, but sometimes they don't, but hopefully they will. They will be delivering to you vote packs as well as the equipment we have here. This is the express vote unit, the square one on top, the ballot box with the DOS already inserted and ready for you to open up on election morning with the code that you're given. You will receive the normal supply bag, and this bag contains your poll ballots. The supply box will be folded up and in it as well, sealed, and you do not open that until please verify that bag for your precinct and verify anything inside the bag that is precinct specific to assure that you have the proper bag and all the proper documents. To the side will be this bag. We call it the judge's envelope or judge's bag. That will be tucked to the side. Once this is delivered, you can retrieve this and go through any information that's inside. It will have, this is called also the judge's envelope, and again, you can retrieve that the night before. There is also in that envelope a list for oaths of office. If you know the names of your people that are serving with you, this was suggested several years ago by one of the judges, that you can complete that prior to that morning, so that when you give the oath, all they have to do is sign. Okay. In addition to that, you will receive this bag, which contains the PPE protection equipment. And inside will be a roll of blue tape for you to measure off for distancing in the polling place. And you can also go outside and go down 10 feet if you have, or as far as you think need to. but the 10 feet is for the campaigning provision in the election code. Once the voters line up and they're adhering to that distance, 6-foot distance, I think they'll follow through. And also inside, space it off as well. As close as you can, depends on the size of your precinct. You will also receive a box of gloves, hand sanitizer, a box of Clorox wipes, disinfect wipes, masks for the election board's members, face shields, and they will come, I think they're in packages of 4, but if that's not sufficient for your precinct, give us a call, we'll make sure you have sufficient. You will also receive pens, which are calculated by the number of ballots we're sending out to you. You will have pens with the same number, or as close to. And that is so when a voter comes in to vote, they are giving a pen to sign a poll book, take it with them to mark their ballot. They can leave with it. That eliminates the need for our poll workers to be sanitizing pens to protect everybody from the coronavirus. With that, and at the end of the night, whatever equipment or materials you do not use that day, please put it back in the bag and return it. The masks are the type that we can sanitize them in the event we need to be using them also in November. I think that's pretty much it. So
What's delivered?
yeah, what's
Okay.
delivered. If you have questions on any of it, again, no matter what it is, during, before election or after, please pick up the phone and give us our office a call, 355-6703. With that, I'm going to let Jody go through the process of assembling the equipment.
And before we jump into the DS200 and all the voting machines, any questions in terms of PPE, masking, anything like that you'd want us to answer? And again, you can put that in the chat window and ask away.
That question also comes up, and it historically will. Are we allowed to require that a voter comes in with a mask? We just highly recommend it or strongly urge the voters to wear a mask. If they refuse or come in, we cannot deny them the right to vote. That would be disenfranchising them. I think the governor also has in a news release to that effect as well.
Okay, so we have a question here from Tom, and Thomas was asking that we're planning on sanitizing and reusing the face shields in November. And yes, so what we want to do is instead of throwing them out, if you could please bring them back, and we'll provide a bag for you to put them in when you return them. But we do want to reuse them in the general election if we still need to. And again, those are plastic face shields that we can wipe down and reuse. The masks, however, we would not be reusing the masks just because they're really a one-time use mask. We have another question here. Are we to sanitize the booths between each vote?
Yes, we would recommend you do that as well.
Okay. Any other questions on the PPE? And as more come up, please ask them, but we'll transition now into the machines, and Jody can go through that process.
Okay. As Joyce has shown you the different materials that you'll receive, when you go in on election day to set up your equipment, you want to verify that your express vote, your DS200, and your election bag are all from the same precinct. Your judge's envelope inside of it will house the key to all of your materials. It will be stapled right inside the judge's envelope in a twin-sized, another manila envelope. Inside of it, you will find your keys that are universal. They open up the ballot box, the DS200 and the express vote. Also in there will be your election code to activate the DS200 and your express vote. what we recommend doing, or what has been recommended by the vendor as well, when you're setting up your equipment, set up your express vote first, because it takes significantly longer to boot up than your DS200 does. So with that, I will go through the process of setting up your express vote. When you receive it, it will be sealed. You'll have to cut the seal with the snippers that will be provided inside of your judge's envelope. Whenever you remove the express vote, lay it down flat. You will find the, not battery pack, but the electrical unit in the side pocket of the express vote bag. Whenever you are plugging in the express vote, there's a little trick to it. The cord is a safety cord, I guess you could say. There is a sleeve that must be lifted in order for the plug to hold. So whenever you're inserting it, it will only go in one way. There are dots that you need to line up to receive the pegs. So whenever you're entering that, you lift up on the sleeve, push, and release, and hopefully it holds.
Last part goes up too, that makes it easier to line.
My fingers don't want to work. The struggle is real. There we go. I'm not making this look easy for you guys. First class had it very easy.
You don't have to take these things.
They're live. All right.
There we go.
And then you will lift the tripod and set it up and plug it in. In order to open your express vote, you'll need the keys that you found in your judge's envelope, and the door to open it is here on the side. You'll use your barrel key. And push on the on button until you hear it beep. And lock it back up. While this is booting up, we'll go ahead and start the process with the DS200. It's the same exact election code for both machines. Setting up your DS200, the slot on the back, you'll need to unlock to expose the cord. Whenever you're taking the cord out, ensure that it is plugged in tightly. This door will not close shut. You must keep it remained open throughout the day. If you're in close quarters and it has to go close to the wall, you can just lift it slightly so it rests on the wall. Again, same keys, all equipment. You want to make sure, plug this machine in first. As long as it's plugged in, whenever you unlock the lid and open it, it will automatically turn on for you. You will not need to do anything else to activate it or to get it to turn on. And then while this is booting up, the other members of the team can be setting up the room, laying out the poll book, the numbered lists of voters, unpacking the bag, and getting things organized so that the polls are ready to open at 7 a.m. There she goes.
While we're waiting for that, we had a question come in, and the question is, will we know how many people sent in pre-votes through the mail-in ballot process? And the actual answer is yes. On our county's website right now, we actually have a page that lists Monday through Friday daily updates on the vote by mail process. And you can find it by going to centercountypa.gov/vote by mail data. Again, centercountypa.gov/vote by mail data. And that's for the public to be able to watch and see how many we have. We have over 20,000 requests that have come in so far, but each of the poll workers in each of the precincts is going to be let know how many ballots are going to be available or are going to be vote by mail rather than in-person voting. And in addition, as we know from Act 12 of 2020 and Act 77 of 2019, the ballots for vote by mail are not going to go out to the precincts. They're actually going to stay in the Willowbank building and are going to be counted here. So looks like we have everything loaded up, and we're going to go back to the login.
All right. Again, same exact election code for both the DS200 and the express votes. We always recommend that 2 people are together when booting this up. That way, someone can kind of be watching over your shoulder to make sure that you are pushing the right letters and numbers. It is case sensitive, so you want to follow that as well. See? Accept. While this is booting up, we can go over and start our express vote. Entering election code, same exact code, same process.
We had another question come in from, let's see, from Denise Meyer. And Denise was saying, do the regular absentee ballots still get processed as normal? And so both vote by mail, absentee, all of the vote by mail ballots are going to be held at the elections office here in Bellefonte. So that process at the end of the night where you would typically do the absentee ballots, it will not happen. So you will not have to do any absentee ballots on election day. And in addition, any voter that would present themselves with an absentee ballot that they received cannot turn it in at your polling location. They would have to turn it in at the elections office on election day at the drop box.
The other question that has arisen out of that is on your general return sheet, are they to list the number of absentee ballots that have been cast in that precinct? And the answer is no. They will only list for the pay purposes of the number of cast in that particular precinct on election day. However, the election board has authorized and approved that every election worker will receive, as part of the Corona-19, an additional $80, which will be added onto their pay when we process it.
Okay. Then we also had another question here is, what if somebody would go to the polls and they would have their absentee ballot or mail-in ballot, and they say, what do I do? What would be the best thing for a poll worker to tell them?
If they haven't voted it, they could hand it in, but that elector then would be required to do a provisional ballot. They would not go to be issued a regular ballot and scan it through the DS200. That provisional ballot would then come back to us, and we would verify that they did not submit that original ballot. But they could, if it's unvoted.
Okay. Yeah. So essentially, they would vote if they wish not to return their absentee or mail-in ballot they got through the mail. They would have to vote provisionally on election day.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. All right. So it looks like we have.
We're up and running over here. You'll verify that it is indeed your precinct. It'll show the precinct name, precinct number. It'll give you the election date. It lets you know whether it's plugged in or running on battery power. And then you hit OK. Again, it'll come up and tell you that it's ready to vote. It'll list your precinct name and your number. This will be the election date and the name of your county. Over.
And political parties in there right now.
Oh, yes. Because it is a primary, only registered Democrats and Republicans are entitled to vote. Whenever you check in with the poll book, you will be given a red, pink, or blue little card that states Democrat or Republican. You will either give that to the individual that's handing out the actual paper ballots, or the person that's in charge of the express vote, you'll hand it to them so that they can select the proper party of your ballot. Once the individual selects the proper party, they'll depart so that the voter can then mark their ballot on their own. Over here, the same thing with the DS200. It's letting you know this is the poll. This is the election date, the county that it's plugged into the outlet, or you're running on battery power. You'll see at the top here a public count of 0 and a protected count. The public count is how many is for the election day. You want that to start at 0. The protected count is a lifetime number. It's the number of ballots that have been placed through this particular machine in its lifetime. Once this is up and ready for the voters, only the public count will show protected count. So we'll select open polls. And at this point in time, the 0 tapes will start printing. In the past, you've only received 1 0 tape. You will now receive 4 0 tapes, and all board members will sign those.
So we had a question about the process of, let me get it here. It's basically, just to clarify, that is different process. The process of bringing in a mail-in ballot on election day to the polls. It's different from in previous elections, right?
Correct.
Yes. Yep. So Anna Kay and Christina had that question. So yeah, it's a different process. Absolutely.
Okay, after all 4 of your 0 tapes have printed, it'll let you know. And if you're ready to go to the vote mode, you'll click go to vote mode. You are now ready for your first voter.
Okay. Any questions on DS200 or the express vote at this time from anybody? Looks like we have everybody good to go here. Again, you can drop your questions in the chat box. All right.
Oh, the setup. Okay, some of the things that we have talked about in our earlier sessions was the setup of the polling location and maintaining social distancing. The biggest issue that we're going to face is the person that's in charge of the poll book and the voter coming in, maintaining that social distancing. A few things that we've talked that we could possibly do is with the blue painter's tape to mark the floor for social distancing, you can go ahead and put a line approximately 3 feet away from the table or so. And then when you present yourself, you'll give your name. The person in charge of the poll book will announce your name and your party, because according to election code, they are required to. Once I present my name, the poll worker will find it in the poll book. She could then turn or push the poll book toward me, and she could slide back while I come forward to sign. With the ink pens laying out, as Joyce mentioned earlier, all voters will receive their own ink pen. If you have the space to do something where you can lay them out so the voters can pick them up themselves, that eliminates you, the poll worker, having to touch all these to individually hand them out to all the voters that are coming in. Another option that we've talked about, if your facility is large enough and you think it works well enough for you, if you have the 6-foot table, instead of having it parallel to the voter, you could turn it long ways, yes, so that the poll worker would be sitting here, I would be down this end announcing my name, and then the poll book, she could slide the poll book down to me and go back to her end, and I would pick up, sign, and go about my way, taking my ink pen with me. I will use the same ink pen to sign the poll book, color in the ovals on my ballot, and take with me. The next person in line, social distancing won't really play won't have any, help me here. Social distancing won't be an issue with the numbered list of voters booklet. There are 2 numbered list of voters booklets. We do need both numbered list of voters booklets. One comes back to the Willow-Bank building, one goes home with one of the inspectors of election. In the numbered list of voters booklet, you are listing the voter's name and their ballot number. So for example, John Smith comes in and he's the first Democrat ballot. You'll indicate John Smith, D1. The next person in line is Republican. It'll be R1. And then the next one, D2, R2, R3, so on and so forth. These numbers down the side will not be sequential.
Yes, they are not books for one for them and one for Republican. We have seen that in the past. So, and some of the board members feel that this number over here has to coincide with the number listed on this side. That's not true. That is just to account for how many you have processed. These are ballot numbers. And that ballot number also gets entered into the poll.
And then also another tidbit of information for the numbered list of voters booklet. Should a voter go through the line, go to vote, and they made a mistake, they come back to have their ballot spoiled. Where you will find their name on the numbered list of voters booklet, you will write void or put a line through there, and you'll assign them the next number and assign their new ballot number, and then go on throughout the night. As the day goes on, periodically check to make sure that the number of voters in your numbered list of voters booklets match up with the number of ballots that have been cast on your DS200. That way, at the end of the night, when you're doing your general returns of votes cast to reconcile your ballots, it'll go much easier knowing that at 5 p.m. I was right on track with where I needed to be.
And the 2 people doing it has to, good idea to check that they are in the same page, same line, to eliminate issues at the end of the night and you're going back and trying to reconcile everything. So the more you can do during the day to keep yourself in line, the easier it will be for finalizing the election at 8 o'clock or when you're completed.
And I know we didn't touch on it in the first class, but since Joyce mentioned it, in your supply box, there are envelopes that get returned to us on election night. All of these envelopes are very specific. So throughout the day, as time allows and as you have space available to you, any of this information can be completed throughout the day. If something belongs on, for example, envelope B will tell you 1 result tape, 1 zero tape, general returns of votes cast, and envelope F. What I recommend, and what others, I've learned this from experienced poll workers, go through and everything that belongs in this envelope, set it where you can. That way, at the end of the night, you're not struggling finding everything in the supply box and where it needs to go. You'll have it all laid out, all filled in, and ready to get it back to us.
Yeah, and then they just pick it up and read for their board members exactly what they were looking for envelope B, and they can get it up. You'll be right through the process. Takes about a half off of everybody at the end of the night. Of course, the pay sheet, again, we didn't really go over that. Like I say, there's 4 categories, and then the other portion we'll take care of. Just make sure it's completed with the name, address of who was serving. Make sure it's legible. And the most common thing it is missed is the individual who accompanies the judge back and who provided transportation. And again, make sure we request that you have it completed so that when we go to process it, we have all precincts pay sheet to submit to the controller for payment. If there's one missing, we have to hold it up until it's completed. So.
We could take a moment now and answer some of the questions that have come in. Let's see. So again, just this is some clarification. related to the absentee ballot. If somebody would bring in an absentee ballot on election day, but they choose to vote provisionally, what should the poll workers do with that absentee ballot?
Well, they would void it.
They would void it and put it
Put it
in
in with
the
the-
bag. There's a clear bag in the supply box where all voted ballots go. Unused ballots, spoiled ballots, ballot stubs would all get placed in that bag to be returned to the Willow Bank
And
building.
I would place all the spoiled ballots on the very top, along with that, if that's what they choose and they did not return to us. Yes, it was strictly a provisional ballot because they have applied. Now, when that ballot gets back, we would validate it and determine, no, he did not vote, he or she did not cast or did not submit, so that ballot would get counted again.
We have another question, which was, if somebody would bring in their own pen, can they use it?
Yes. Yes.
Yep, they can absolutely use it. Another question is, are we going to have the constables? Are the constables still allowed to be at the polling locations on election day?
Yes.
Yes, constables and law enforcement would be allowed at the polling locations. Another question is, which of the PPE are we required to use, and which is only suggested?
We are supplying everything, and that is your decision of how you administer it, but we recommend you wear the mask. You use sanitizer, the Clorox wipes for wiping down between voters. I don't know if you can, the table you're using, but periodically write down even the one with polling your vote booths. I would recommend they do that between every voter. The tape to mark off, you want to do their distance taping, and we also have the signs. I don't think, Michael, you took a picture of
Yeah.
that. We have two
Yeah.
signs that we are going to provide you to post to alert your voters.
Yeah, in terms of, just to kind of go back down the list, these are the supplies that the county purchased. We're going to be getting a shipment of PPE that is going to augment what you're seeing here right now. And so it's going to augment what you're seeing here right now. And really what that's going to be is we're going to be getting some more sanitizer, hand disinfectant wipes, and also sanitizer as well. That's going to be coming through, and that's going to be occurring. And what we're going to be also getting is, I'm thinking of the one that we're going to be getting, masks as well. They're going to send some masks for us as well.
They have arrived today, but we haven't had a chance to check.
Yes, but really the requirement would be the masks, to wear those. The gloves are not necessarily something that you need to wear. Some people feel more comfortable wearing them, some don't. The key thing with your hands is, if you wash them and they're using the hand sanitizer, and as long as you're not touching other things, your hands are, they're clean. And as long as you're, again, not touching high contact surfaces and not disinfecting, that's the big thing. But if you prefer to wear gloves, you're certainly able to, and those are available for you to use right there. We did have a few other questions come in. Let's jump back there. Okay, what if they mailed one of the mail votes that are done at the voter office? What if they mailed one? Just trying to understand that question. This is coming from Christina. What if they mailed one of the mail votes, so the vote by mail that are done at the voter office? We can't void that. That's correct, right? Once somebody
Submits that mail-in and/or absentee ballot from our office, there's no other option.
Yeah, it is credited right away.
Right.
So, and if they went to the polls and did a provisional, they do not get counted at the polling place. So when that provisional ballot would come back to us to validate, we already have a record that he already voted. So that provisional ballot would be voided.
Right. Okay. Let's see. If they brought their own pen, couldn't that be a problem if the computer doesn't read their type of pen? Yeah, so Ed, that's a great point. Ed makes a point of, could they bring their own pen? We would want to make sure that that's not a, there are some colors.
Right, like
Yeah.
it's not a Sharpie.
Right.
No Sharpies.
As long as it's a blue or black ballpoint pen,
Right.
it's permissible. I wouldn't use any type of gel ink pens, no pencils, no Sharpies, no felt tip markers. Just stick strictly with the blue, black ballpoint pen.
Okay, right, some more questions here. One of our usual poll workers declined to work, and in the primary, who finds a replacement? This is Alan asking this. He's saying, does Alan find the replacement, or does the election board?
Well, Alan, if you have any friends or family or neighbors that are interested in helping you, definitely recruit them. Usually I can help you out, and I'll have an abundance of people. We utilize the high school students, which I do not have access to this time. Our commissioners did put out a plea for help, which we've had a great response. I have used the majority of those people in locations. So unfortunately, I don't have anyone at the moment to give to you all. If you have people that are interested in working, they're more than welcome to do so. A large number of our precincts are running on skeleton crews. So a typical board that's supposed to have 5 might be running with 3 or 4. The larger precincts that would have 12 or 15 workers are running with 5. I really don't have any locations that I'm aware of that have more than 5 poll workers.
We had somebody ask the question of, would they be able to hire a high school student to wipe the booths between voters to get community hours for school?
As long as they're 17, they can work on the board. And as long as you personally don't have to pay them, but if they're on the pay sheet, they will get paid by the county, and they'll also receive community hours.
We had a question from Donald Albertson, who was saying the PPE is not only for our protection, but for voters' protection. So should we use it? And yes, we would recommend you use as much of it as possible. And again, the masks and sanitizing your hands are really the key things. The challenge that we have would be the gloves. Again, if you can sanitize your hands and wash your hands, that's the best thing to do. We know that. But if you're comfortable with the gloves, that's certainly allowable as well. We have a question from Denise. Will the poll book be mailed? I'm sorry. Will the poll book be marked so we know if they sent a mail-in ballot?
Yes, it'll be the same exact as what it was in the past. If someone submitted an absentee ballot in the signature block, it would say absentee. So it will say the same thing. If someone submitted an absentee ballot, because we still do have those applications as well, it'll be indicated. If it's a mail-in ballot, it'll also indicate that in the signature block. In addition to that, you'll also, in the past, you got your absentee ballots that also had a report of everyone in your precinct that applied for one and also returned it. You still will receive that report of everyone that received and asked for an absentee and or mail-in ballot. So you'll have a good idea of how many people in your precinct have voted by mail, to give you a rough idea of what your foot traffic might be like.
We had one more question from Dan. Dan was asking if we could utilize some of the international students at Penn State to work the polls. One of the challenges with that is we don't have a lot of international students left here in Centre County. Actually, due to COVID-19, most of them have gone home due to the travel restrictions surrounding COVID-19. So we would not be able to do that.
Why they have to be a registered voter.
Well, you have to be a U.S. citizen as well.
Yeah.
And that's a great question. Both Jody and Joyce make the point that international students, due to them not being a U.S. citizen or a registered voter, wouldn't be able to work the polls on Election Day. Let's take one final question, and then we will be able to two. All right, so we have, I have not heard which poll I'm supposed to work at yet. And that email, yes, that's coming from Anna. Anna, we will get you that. Yes.
Yeah, definitely either shoot me an email if you have my email address, or call the office at 355-6703. I thought I had everyone assigned. I don't know if maybe I haven't heard from you yet. If I haven't given you an assignment, I will gladly do so. But definitely reach out to me one way or the other.
Okay. Let's see, Dave. Dave is asking if people could be sent the link to the data we have for the mail-in ballots. And yes, we'll do that right now, Dave. I'll take a moment to put that in the chat here, and everybody can see that. That data is coming from Tisha in our elections office. She's doing a data output for that every day. And so I just sent that over again in the chat, so people can look at that when they have the opportunity to do so. Want to make sure that we've got all the questions here to check mail-in ballot. Okay. All right. We're going to continue with the presentation, and we'll stop in a few minutes again for some questions, but we'll get on with some of the presentation. Okay.
We're going to briefly go through the manual. Now, in your judge's envelope bag, you will also receive this manual, as well as 2 paper copies for the board, other members of the board, as well as a street list and what is normally there. But we're just going to quickly go through the manual touch on a couple highlights. Election board, the judge of elections is in charge and assigns the duties as such. The return board, that's us. The equipment, we already went through that for the delivery. And then on election day, you can decide the most feasible way to set up your polling place. But again, we're recommending this 6-foot distance as much as possibly can be accomplished. If you have questions during the election day, the phone number is in the book, direct phone number, which is 355-6709, which is not a listed number, but we do have 4 or 5 phones call down that are available to answer the question. This is for the boards to readily get in contact with our office. The regular office number is 355-6703, as Jody indicated a while ago. There is also a checklist for opening the polls. And again, as we always recommend, take 2 people, go down each item, and have one actually read it and the other do the task that it's telling you to do. And if you do that, you'll walk right through. I know sometimes we think, oh, we've done this before. We do it ourselves when we're setting up sometimes, and oh, we remember how to do this. Recommending, follow the list. There is a DS200 opening procedure, which Jody has gone through, and the opening of the polls. The instructions for the voting process is a voter presents himself, signs a poll book, which you ask them their name and address, and you want them to tell you their address to check that it corresponds with what's on our records. If it is different, there is a form in the supply box for them to change their address, and then it comes back to us and we would update it. You just go through the normal voting process. Campaigning must be 10 feet from the entrance and/or signs, 10 feet from the entrance of the polling place. The judge is to monitor some of that during the day. Sometimes, and most people adhere to the regulations. The voting process, again, is you sign the poll book, your ballot is issued, you go to the voting booth, mark your ballot, bring it out, and feed it through the DS200, and Jody's going to do some of that here in a little bit. The absentee mail-in ballots, we've already covered most of the subject on that. We have quite an abundance of them. We are over 20,000, and all absentee ballots remain here at the election office. Provisional ballots, that process is the same as before, with the exception that if a voter who has applied for an absentee ballot, whether it's a mail-in or the regular, and they have not submitted it, then when they come to the polls, they would be issued a provisional ballot. Again, for provisional ballots or any question, pick up that phone, call our office, and we will verify and check the records, etc. And we may end up saying, give them a provisional ballot. Provisional ballots are issued if the voter's name is not in the poll book, and most of the time they are at the wrong precinct. And that's why you call, we would tell you they belong in such and such precinct, and we highly recommend they go to the precinct they're assigned to. What's the other one? Oh, they do not have ID. That first time voter must show ID. If they do not have ID on them, they would be given a provisional ballot, or it could be a court order of some sort, other than the new provision that a voter who had voted or applied for an absentee did not return it, and now they're given a provisional ballot as well. Voters can take their children with them to vote. It's an educational process. Campaigning and political activity. Again, that outside is 10 feet from the entrance. Inside, a voter can come in with a piece of a garment on that has campaign information or a candidate's name or a button or a pin, whatever. That is allowed unless they are actively campaigning within the polling place. If you hear or see that happening, you please ask them to refrain from it, and most of them will hear to it. Okay. There are reasons for challenging a voter, and there are forms in the supply box for that provision. And if you have someone who wants to challenge, call the phone and we will go through it with you and go through that process. If a voter is challenged, you do not refuse them to right to vote, though. You do have the forms filled out, but they are not disenfranchised. Again, call our office and we'll walk you through it. An individual who comes in who may need assistance and it's not marked in their poll book, then they are required to fill out a form requesting assistance. And there is also a log form for the judge of elections to complete and list anybody who was given assistance during the day at that particular polling place. That individual could have someone with them or anybody on the board, with the exception of the judge. The judge of elections, the individual's employer, or a member of their union representative could not come in and assist those individuals to vote. Watchers, you may have watchers, and if you do, they are to be placed decent distance away from the table of the polling or the election board. They cannot interfere with the conduct. They are there to make sure that everything is being done properly, as well as they have a checkoff list as to members of their political party or for their candidate to check off who has appeared to vote. In most of the cases, they're taking the names and then they do a phone calling at a certain hour. They'll start calling people to maybe come out to vote. They do not bring their children to the polling place with them to be disruptive. They do not come in and use their cell phone or the technology apparatuses, especially a cell phone. If they're using a cell phone, you can ask them to politely step outside and etc. It's disruptive to the process of the election. That's pretty much goes through the day of the highlights. If you have a watcher, they will come in. When they come in, they will have a watcher certificate and present it to the judge. The judge will examine it and make sure it has that embossed seal on it and then it's legit, and then they give it back to them. They could only be at your polling place for an hour or two and be allowed to go to another polling place, whichever the party or their candidate wishes them to do. After everybody has voted, there is also a checklist for closing the polls. And again, as we recommend, take the list, one read it, one do the task, and you'll walk right through. I guess that's it. Also in the back, there's a DS-200 closing procedure. We also have the items that you are required to bring back to the Willowbank building on election night. There is also a plain paper in the judge's envelope that they can literally mark each one as a prepare there once they have everything closed out and balanced. The question did come up, what is the process for returning the ballot, returning election night? And we did advise them that is under consideration and they will be given instructions. It could be just a drive up. We would retrieve the equipment you're bringing back, and we would take your judge's envelope and you would be on your way. Or we could put you in a holding pattern until we checked everything and then advise you, yes, you're okay. We haven't made that decision yet, but we will give you the details. The important thing the most important thing we need on election night is your USB stick for the tabulation of your election results for that precinct. So But you will be advised as to what that would be. You don't have the absentee ballots now, so I think you're gonna have a short, normally election night, a short night. You should be closing out and be back here in very good time. So.
Okay. Thank you, Joyce. We'll look for some questions now. We do have a question of, will we get I voted stickers to hand out this year?
They are in your supply box, yes. It was brought up at the last session. That would be something somebody would be touching. That's your discretion. Somebody did suggest maybe you put it on the side of the DS200 along the edge and let them take them themselves. But that was a good question. We hadn't thought of that. We've had a lot of change, not a lot for you people, but a lot of different things that we have to consider here. I didn't mention in our supply box before, we had always inserted, they were legal files really, for the voter to use as a secrecy sleeve if they so chose to. Some people do. However, with the coronavirus, they cannot be sanitized. So we will not be sending them this time. However, the ballot is one-sided. So that individual could fold that ballot when they leave the voting booth and take it to the DOS. Actually, they can put it face down and it will tabulate it. So we're trying to avert anything that may be contaminated.
All right, one more question here, and it is from Denise, and she asked, we have a tiny room for a polling place. Can we just take one voter at a time due to social distancing concerns?
Yeah, that's what she has to do, yes.
Yes, use your best judgment. And again, I think people who are going to come on to vote on election day are going to be patient. They're going to understand the circumstances we're all in. So you can thank them profusely for their patience as they come in to vote. So, yeah.
How large a precinct is she? Is it a large precinct?
It's Denise Meyer, Vidion. Yeah.
Although we have a lot of absentees in that precinct.
We do have a large number, and I personally don't know the layout of that area, but if there's a hallway as well, or a large lobby area where you could have the social distancing marked, so that they can at least have somewhere to be, and whether it's 2 vote booths that fit into your, like, we're also requesting that the vote booths be set 6 feet apart for social distancing. So if you have the space for only 1, but if you have the space for 2 vote packs, we recommend doing that. Essentially, do what you have to do to keep everybody safe.
Okay. All right. Seeing no other, we might have one more question here. Okay, great. We have a question. Will you send extension cords so we can light the vote booths at greater distances?
Send a request, send an email to Jody so that she knows what precincts actually we have some on hand, yes, but we will supply them if we were aware of it.
Yeah, so that question was from Thomas. Thomas, if you would like to send us an email, again, Jody, to request those, certainly do that. Okay, all right, no other questions at this point. Again, we'll take questions in a bit. If there are more, we'll keep going.
All right, I'm just going to run it through a few ballots through just to see for you to see the process. The DS200 does take the ballot in any orientation, face up, face down, header, first, footer first. It makes no difference. The voter themselves inserts the ballot into the DS200. No one from the election board is to assist them. As Joyce had mentioned, now our demo ballots are not single-sided, but our election day ones are. As you can see, you could easily just fold it over and carry it to the polling location and feed it in face down so that no one would ever see how you voted. Now this one here, I am going to give you a heads up. It is overvoted. On here it says to vote for 1, and we intentionally did 2. So you can see how the machine reacts to that. here, it's going to tell you what the race is and what the problem is. You chose 2 candidates when you were only permitted to choose 1. Most likely the voter is going to be like, what's going on? What do I need to do? What happened? You as the poll worker, do not touch the return or the cast button. You can explain to the voter that the machine is telling you that you colored in too many ovals. These are your options. Should you, the voter, return or choose to return the ballot, your ballot would come back out to you. You would take it to the poll worker, have it spoiled, and get a new ballot issued. If you're like, you know what, I don't really care, I'm in a hurry, I'm late for work, you have the option of casting that ballot. Again, poll workers, do not cast or return the ballot for the voter. Make them do it. That way they cannot come back and say, I didn't want to do that, but the poll worker touched the button before I could make up my mind. So I'm casting my ballot. I don't care that I overvoted with the 2 favorite dog breeds. All the other races on that ballot will count except for the race that was overvoted. As you can see, now the public count is the only thing that's available to see. The protected count is not available for the voter. The same thing applies with the express vote ballots. It does not make a difference what orientation it goes in. It has the specific slot for you to place that ballot into. No, it's not gonna like it. It's telling me it couldn't be red, try a different orientation. Now, I will tell you these particular ballots have been handled a lot and they are like heat sensitive. So there's markings on them and that could be an issue, but for blank ballots, it really wouldn't be that big of a deal. I think that's the one that gave me the trouble earlier. Now, an example with it being marked, how these smudges are on it. If the voter had lotion on or greasy hands or they were sweating, it could cause marks like that, and then they're going to receive the same message. It did. Oh gosh. Okay. I got nothing here. With the express vote, the different types of ballots, the individual will receive a blank express vote card. There's nothing on it. There's no party affiliation whatsoever. As we mentioned earlier, whenever you come in and give your name, the poll worker will give you a card that is either Democrat or Republican. So the person handing out ballots knows what ballot to hand to you, or with the express vote, the person knows what ballot to activate on your behalf. Again, the poll worker must choose whether it's a Democrat or Republican based upon the card that the voter gives them. The voter will insert their blank card, and it's very specific. You can see that there's a notch taken out of the corner of the paper. It must line up with the marking for it to take that ballot. Now, unfortunately, I failed to get some blank ballots, but you would essentially just enter it like this. Now that has votes on it. It'll actually bring up telling me that there are votes on this ballot. So for example, if I have trouble seeing and I use, this is really on here tight. There is a marking paddle for those that are visually impaired, and it has the Braille on it. So I could be making my choices based on that. Also, there are earphones that are in the supply bag, and there will also be disposable earphone covers for anyone that should choose to use it. My voted ballot, I can put it back in and have it read to me so I can verify that the selections I made are what was printed on that ballot. Once I'm ready to cast that ballot, I'll take it over to the DS200 and I, the voter, will insert it. There we go. The thank you for voting. we suggest that the poll workers tell the voters, please do not leave the ballot box until you've received that message. Because if the voter puts it in real fast and starts leaving and one of those error messages would come up, they don't have the opportunity to do that. So just let them know, please don't leave the ballot box until you've been told thank you for voting. Emergency section. Hopefully this is something that you're not going to have to deal with. Should something happen to your DS200 and for whatever reason it's not taking the ballots, it's jamming, there's some sort of issue, she just doesn't want to work, and we can't talk to you over the phone about getting it fixed, we would send out a rover immediately. But in that interim, we would tell you to put the ballots into the emergency section, and it's the same key. You'll open the door and slide down the aluminum door, relock it, and any ballots that are cast will get put into this emergency section, and they'll remain there until the polls close at 8 p.m. Once your DS200 is up and working, just reopen, lift the flap, and relock, so no more ballots can be placed in there.
Question came through about the frequency in which the machine should be wiped. Should it really be after a voter touches it, or, you know?
Well,
yeah.
The only time anyone would be touching this particular screen would be if there were overvotes.
Okay.
So hopefully there's not a whole lot of that going on. So, but if someone is touching it, then I do recommend, especially if they're not wearing gloves, that you do disinfect it. Now, there are alcohol swabs or alcohol wipes. They are the only thing that you can use on the Express Vote screen and the DS200 screen in order to disinfect it. Do not use the Clorox wipes or any type of spray. Strictly alcohol swabs.
Okay, and let's, do you have them there? But then in terms of actual voting booths, if somebody would go into a voting booth and vote in there.
Oh, in the
Yeah.
booths, if I'm anticipating you're not going to have heavy turnout. So if you can do it between every voter, I recommend doing it between every voter.
Okay. We also had a question about what happens if an emergency/saved ballot has overvote when it finally gets scanned?
Always accept.
Okay.
Because then everything else that that voter has voted on could be counted.
Another question is for the express vote, are we still recommending that individuals should test it out? The poll workers, at least 1 or 2 poll workers should vote on it to make sure on election day that it still works.
Yes, that's to protect the elector who comes in and uses it. It's possibly only one of them in your precinct, so there would be 3, 4 different ballots in there that nobody could identify any one specific ballot.
Okay, great. All right, no other questions at this point. We'll go on to our next topic.
Closing, okay.
Okay.
If there's no other questions about the process, we'll go to the end of the night. Polls close at 8 p.m. If you have any voters in line and it turns 8 p.m., anyone in line is entitled to vote. If you see that people are still coming in, we recommend one of the poll workers go out at 8 p.m., stand at the end of the line so it does not continue to grow, but everyone in line does get to vote. All 8 p.m.'s here, everyone's gone. Any ballots that you have placed in the emergency section do get fed through the DS200. Once all the ballots have been fed through, you're ready to shut down. As Joyce has stated in the manual, there are step-by-step procedures that you can follow. But I'll give you, well, actually, they're all simple. To shut it down, you'll use, again, the same keys that you've always had in the past. You'll insert your barrel key. And inside, you'll see a power and a close polls button. You hit the close polls button, and it'll start going through its processes. Here, it'll ask you, don't close, keep voting, or close polls. We're ready to close polls because it's been a long day.
And while that poll is closing, we do have a question that was related to the undervote. So let's read through this. I'm sorry. This is the undervote notification turned off?
Yes.
Yeah. So Ed and Denise had asked that the undervote feature is turned off.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. I believe we stated earlier, you will get 4 results tapes at the end of the night, as you have in the past. All of them will be signed by the poll workers. While this is spitting out all the results tapes, we can go ahead and shut down our express vote. All my results tapes have printed. This only prints one because it's a demo. And you're ready. We are finished. We're shutting off. This is the USB that Joyce was talking about. That is of the utmost importance to us. Do not remove this from the machine until all the lights are off and the screen has gone black. Now it's safe to remove. You'll take the USB out of the DS200. In your results return envelope will be a USB carrier. You'll insert your USB into that and put it in here with all the other required materials that will get placed in your judge's envelope. Then on to the express vote shutdown, very similar. You'll see the on-off button. You hit the off button and lock it back up. Again, with the trick, plug in the back, lay the machine flat on its face, lift the sleeve, and pull the cord out. The list of everything that's required to come back, as Joyce mentioned, is on the orange checkoff sheet that's in the back of your manual. As long as you have absolutely everything that's on that list, checking in at the Willowbank building will be smooth and easy. If you have any problems or questions throughout the night, give us a call. We will walk you through whatever steps are needed. And that's it in a nutshell. Most of it's reviewed for the up there. If you are new, or even if you are a seasoned veteran and you would feel more comfortable doing some hands-on, call the office, ask for me, Jody, and we can schedule an appointment to do a one-on-one. I think that's all I have. If there's more questions.
Other than packing them up, and as Jody said, there's a list of what you do can carry back election night, which is this unit. After you everything that's not required in the judge's envelope goes in your rolling black supply bag that you bring back, and that is the bag with all your unused ballots, your voted ballots, spoiled ballots, anything that's not on that list. And you say, well, where did I put it? Put it back in that bag. We will sort it out. Your voting booths, be sure and tear them down and have them assembled with the DS200 in the ballot box for pickup by our maintenance staff the following day. Makes it much easier for them, and they appreciate it, and we do too. Other than that, the PPE supplies, please, whatever is remaining or you have left, put in that blue bag that you received them in and returned them to us along with the other. That is not on their checkoff list
Okay.
because that's been added. So just bring that back as well. And with that, when you get here, and like I said, we will give you directions as to the process election night, whether it'll be just a drop and you're on your way, or whether, we'll check things out that night. But the important thing, as we both mentioned, is that USB stick. The
Okay.
rest of it, if it's not there, it's not that critical that we couldn't handle the day after, so.
So we're watching the chat window here. Any questions or anything else that you'd like us to clarify, go over, any questions? And as well, if anything comes up in the next few days, you can feel free to reach out to Jody and Joyce, and they can get you an answer to any of your questions. But anything else at this point, we will, again, whenever we end the meeting, we'll end it and we'll put this on YouTube in the next few day or two, and we'll send a link out to everybody. But any other questions before we look to end the training? Okay. We just want to close. I'll share a bit of thanks, and then I'll turn it over to Jody and Joyce to add their thanks as well. We're so grateful and appreciative of all the work you're going to be doing for us as we hold Election Day. Our staff here, our team here has been doing an incredible amount of processing of ballots, of getting the election materials ready. And again, with the pandemic, we are so appreciative of the work that they do and will continue to do. And we thank you so much for all the work that you're going to do. So I'll turn it over to them for some closing, and then again, we'll say goodnight.
All right, thank you for joining us. I greatly appreciate you being willing to be poll workers for us. If there's anything that we can do to make things easier for you, have questions, things that you want to do with the machine one-on-one, let us know. As Joyce said, on Election Day, do not stress out, call us. We are there from 6 a.m. until the last person leaves the Willowbank building here on election night. We're here to help you and make things as smooth as possible.
Okay, and my sentiments as well. Thank you for joining us, and we appreciate all of you out there working. And Jody has done a fantastic job in recruiting not only poll workers, but relocating polling places. She has worked very diligently on that and has had a lot of cooperation from all you people out there. And I must say, and I've been here a couple years for elections, and I want to tell you, this one is the most challenging that we have ever faced. So again, thank you. We will all make it. We may struggle now and then, but it will all come out.
Well said, both of you. And we just had one final last question, then we're going to conclude the training. There's a requirement that 2 people must be in a car and return to the Willowbank building. Is it okay if they drive separately with the materials?
No, they should be together.
Okay.
That's election code.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we're trying to work. My apologies. Let me get back into the chat here. Here we go. One of the challenges we're working with is there have been some restrictions eased by the Department of State, some haven't, and so that requirement to have 2 people come back to the Willowbank. Yeah, we'll.
If they have an issue, let us know. Maybe we can somehow help you rectify the situation. We may have to send, if they can have somebody come back. We have in the past a couple of times sent a couple people out to pick it up for them. We can't have that many across the county because we don't have that many helpers, but if it's a real issue, yeah, give us a call. We'll see what we can do to assist you.
Okay. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you again for joining us, and take care.
Bye. Bye.